Good afternoon. It's April 17th, 2025. We're here to have a Human Resources Committee meeting for Maryland Environmental Service Board of Directors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from June 24th, 2024. Are there any comments on those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval of those minutes? Second?
And I'll second.
Thank you. Do we need to have a vote on this, Shelley?
Technically, if there are no amendments or changes of any sort offered, we can approve by consent. And none were offered, so you can consider them approved.
All right, they are approved. Ramona Jones, do you want to go ahead and start reviewing these policies? Should we vote on these all together or one at a time?
You did last time, and in June when you reviewed policies, you discussed each policy individually, and then you took a vote at the end to approve all of them, which I guess you can do, or if there's certain ones that you want to single out, you could certainly do them that way too.
We'll do that again. We'll discuss them independently and vote as one unit.
And if I may, just before Ms. Jones begins, do a quick introduction. We have a new HR chief right here, Dr. Felicia Gross. She started last week.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Good morning, everyone. So we are reviewing HR policies. We're going to start with policy 1.7 under hiring and employment for scheduled hours. This policy review included a update to the scope and purpose, as well as expanding and providing definitions for standard workday, hours of work and work time, and updating the overall policy statement.
And I can pull each one up on the screen. If there's a certain section you want to look at it, just let me know and I'll scroll to that. Did you want to discuss each one, or do you just want to?
Yeah. Did anyone have any comments on this item? Hearing none, you're free to go to the next.
Thank you so much. The next policy under review is policy 3.02 under leave and time off for our annual leave policy. Here, the proposed updates are eligibility for temporary and student employees. That eligibility statement has been updated. And then there were clarifications made throughout the policy with regard to utilization of leave, accrual, and carryover.
Are there any comments or questions on this item? Hearing none, I think we can move to the next.
Okay. The next policy is policy 3.22, again under leave and time off for sick and safe leave. The updates to this policy are updated employee definitions and eligibility, as well as, again, the accrual policy and denial and use of sick and safe leave.
I have a comment. On that particular one, under the denial, employee absence will cause a disruption in MES. Is there some more guidance one can get about what that is? If you could change from one person to another, and I thought maybe something provided guidance would be helpful. Whether it's at a given level, whether it's in terms of whether it's something that's done across the entire MES. So I thought something like that would be helpful. People start looking at it and saying, well, what does this mean?
Well, so, go ahead.
So we can definitely consider providing guidance, but we also want to make sure that the policy itself is not so restrictive that it ties the hands of the supervisors, because to your point, the undue hardship.
And what I would like to add to that is it's going to be very difficult to pretty much write down every single scenario.
That's not the point.
So the law itself and the policy is for specific purposes, where it can also be used for assessing with immediate relatives, like immediate family members. So there's guidance in place on when the sick and safe leave can be used. If there is no real disruption to MES operations, if there is nothing critical in that particular case, it's going to be the management's call, but it's really like, okay, but in most cases, the employee will be able to use that particular leave. It's no different than how we use sick leave today.
I think that it's some guidance, not a list of everything. It could be something we're saying at what level, okay, and that type of thing. So something that I don't like it. Then you're constructing MES, so you can't go, and that's not what the intent is. So some thought about
Sure.
that.
And another thing that I would like to point out is that most MES employees actually accrue more than what is specified in this particular law. Most employees earn 7 days of sick leave. This applies to a very, very small population of MES employees who, correct me if I'm wrong, don't really work full time. But other than that, the intent is really to allow them to accrue sick leave. So in the past, people who weren't full time did not necessarily accrue the minimum that is specified in the law. This just basically raises the bar as to how much they can accrue per year. But we will clarify it further.
We decide that you don't want to do anything, just a note back maybe to the committee. Decided that nothing could be done because.
I'm having trouble hearing everything that Dr. Johnson's saying.
You get all the good stuff, not in your bad. But basically, I said if the decision is made not to suggest an example of the spurring disruption to MES, a note back to the committee saying we didn't do it because would be helpful, at least to me.
Okay. Shelley, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, this is pretty tightly woven into annotated code.
I mean,
So I don't-
it seems like most of these policies are all kind of related to just bringing them into compliance. Do you agree?
This one is for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I just know that most of these same things we're reviewing locally here at the same time. I think are there any other comments on this unit or this item? I think we're good to go to the next.
Okay, then on to policy 4.03 under separation, for abandonment of employment. This policy to update made here were two procedures for what abandonment of employment is for determining and executing, abandonment of employment as a disciplinary action under our
there any questions on this item? All right, we can go to the next.
The next policy is 5.02 under attendance and absenteeism, the attendance standards and lateness policy. This policy, there were just some clarifications, updates to the notice and the procedures, very few, but for the update. Clarifications for the employee as well as the procedure that is
Mhm.
followed.
I have a comment. Under this, at the very end, this is, we give something about supervisors, whereas this whole section was about employees. So my point was whether or not that piece about the supervisor should be under what's being asked for the employees. It could be put someplace else, but I thought it was not under the title. That it was being- Looking on the.
Section under
It's the,
section 3.
and then it says at the very end, supervisors have the following responsibilities. You see that?
Can you scroll down to that part?
Let me-
I think,
I'm not sure.
I think he's referencing the heading that's under.
Wait, this is, or this is not attendance standards.
Standards lateness, 5.02.
Okay, that's right, attendance. Let's see. I copied areas where I had concern. Of course, they've changed with, as a couple of changes took place. So
Looking at section B, supervisors will be responsible for ensuring.
yeah, but this whole thing was about employees and not supervisors. The point is at the right place for it to be.
So, I'm sorry, but I think what's here under responsibilities for section 3, employees is underlined. So that's A for employees and B is for supervisors. So I don't know if maybe we should make the formatting change.
Responsibilities of the employees is A, responsibility of supervisors is B.
Yeah, I do think a formatting change would be helpful there.
I think it would clean it up.
Can we make sure I don't forget to make that note whenever we're bringing these all for a vote? With that adjustment?
Do it right. Yeah, as I say, we can kind of do it right on the fly.
Okay,
Basically,
yeah.
that answers the question. Okay.
Are you agreeable to that, Dr. Johnson?
I am very much so.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions on this item? All right, we can move to the next.
Okay, the next policy is 6.05 under the discipline appeal, for appeal of disciplinary suspension. Here, there was an update to definitions of what a disciplinary suspension is, as well as just a few highlights on who the decision is for procedure.
Are there any comments or questions on this item? I'm not hearing anything, so I think we can move on to the apprenticeship policy.
So policy 8.03 under training and development for apprenticeship policy for operator in training program or OIT. The update here, there is an update to the policy with regards to allowing college credit for a OIT to come in as OIT 1. And then there are additional there's additional edit here to provide for what those standards look like, as well as adding an OIT pending for anyone who is unsuccessful in the first 2 years of the OIT program.
Yeah, I think this one was definitely some cleanup. Most of us were here when we really evaluated this, I believe 2 years ago.
I think it's at the end, yeah.
Any comments or questions on this item? Hearing none, we can move to the overtime comp time.
Okay, so time policy is stated, policy 10.04 under wage and salary, overtime and compensatory time, accrual and use. Edits here were made across the full document, expanding the policy statement, expanding definitions, and updating the procedure.
So I did have one comment on this one. Right. I know that towards the end of the policy, it states that was it only how many hours could be carried over? 120?
Oh, yes, it's 120, yeah.
But that is for
and I'm sorry.
that is for exempt employees.
Okay. What about non-exempt?
There is no limit.
Okay. The only thing I didn't care for on this, they could only carry over the 120 hours. And as an exempt employee, you don't always have enough or the opportunity to take that time. So I fear that the 120 hour mark is I still feel they're going to lose some of that time, or the opportunities there for them to lose some of it. Anybody have any thoughts on that particular part of this?
I don't know. As an exempt employee, I think even allowing folks to accrue comp time is rather generous. So,
True.
and not required under the law. Here with the county, we also give exempt employees opportunities to accrue it, but we cap it at 80. So for exempt and non-exempt. Once a non-exempt hits 80, then they have to take it as pay.
I guess you're right. I'm not allowed to accrue any. So
most places don't allow you to accrue any as exempt. So I think this is rather generous as it is.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this one?
I just wanted to add that there is a provision in the policy that allows for a request to carry over more than 120 hours if there has been a unique circumstance. So I think it's the executive director that approved that, and probably the management chain of whoever that employee would be. So if there's been an extraordinary period of work and somebody has not been able to take leave and has had to accrue a lot of leave, there is an opportunity request to carry over more than 120 hours.
All right. Thank you. Right. Could I receive a motion for approval of all of these policies?
It's the change to the one that we noted earlier.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Have a second? All right. All right. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. Next item on the agenda are the career ladder updates by Matt Lipinski.
Basically, with the career ladders, there's a couple things that we're looking at doing on that. First one is where we get between the career ladder operator in training 1 to 2. There's a we've been having issues where our operators are not able to pass that extra exam, and while we've invested a lot of money in them and that they're good operators, but they just can't pass the exam. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to add a OIT pending, which would be there between the OIT 1 and OIT 2, where we would be able to hold on to that person for at least a 3-year period, a renewal of their license or temporary license for that 3-year, and move them forward. This is going to be used on a very limited basis, and right now, my preference is if they're not cutting it, we want to move them out of the program at the OIT point, not at the OIT one. But we have only a few right now that are in this situation. I have one very good operator, and I would like to keep her, and I think we'll be able, with some tender loving care, we'll get her to pass this exam and move forward. So it gives us an opportunity to protect the investment we made, because if you look at this program in a 3-year period, we're in it for about $110,000 or $120,000 of cost in bringing them along with the education and their training in their program. So this is a good opportunity for us to keep those folks and move them on. The next part of this one that we wanted to do was we wanted to look at, one of the things is if you look at, we have the environmental specialists. We have environmental specialists when it comes time to hire those jobs. We have 50, 100 applicants for those jobs. We went back to the board and talked to the certification board, and they provided us the opportunity. We can give one year of experience to the people that have a degree in the OIT program. So one of the things we're looking at is with the training that they have would be to start to look at that additional group to bring them in. And with the college education and that, I think we could potentially retool the whole concept behind the OIT and look at a group that has the potential. They're coming right out of school, have the potential to take these tests, pass these tests, and move things forward. So those are the two major changes. And there was one other thing we're looking at doing is we're actually looking at doing something similar to what MES is doing, and actually bringing in OITs and like for high school students, and allowing them to participate in their senior year and gain time in the trade. And that took Joe Wright is he's on the certification board, and they discussed that. And one of the things is in order to get a temporary license, you have to have a high school diploma. They are going to allow the exception for these students to go ahead and get the temporary license. So theoretically, we could build with a senior in high school, he could get a quarter of a year or better experience, probably half a year experience towards his OIT and the 3-year program to actually get his license. So it's kind of like I think what Dr. Glass refers to it as is increasing our opportunity with the pipeline, and that's the pipeline side of it. So hopefully I was clear, but you know what? I'll entertain all the questions you have on it.
I just have a statement. I think it's a great idea. All 3 of those items. I know I've had it happen where some of my best workers and best operators, just they're not test takers.
Yep.
And you need to work with them a little bit longer before you can get them to that point. So I'm in full support of this.
Well, Bobby, it's kind of funny because I had a gentleman that worked for me 25 years. He could not pass the test. I made a special category. I called it operator uncertified. And since I left there, they changed their program and said, you must have your certification. This guy worked 25 years, 20 years on working the night shift by himself, and they termed him because he could not pass the test. But, you know, it's one of those things. We can't afford to just throw people away after we spent the kind of money that we've spent on. And this is that effort where we'll bring them along.
I agree. We struggle with the same thing here in the county. And like Bobby said, some of these fellas just aren't good test takers, but they know their business.
Do we need to have a vote on this item, or is this more for notification purposes, Matt?
I don't know. I'm gonna defer to Ms. Cooley.
The same change being made to the water wastewater operator ladder. I think in the past we have voted for recommending to the full board that you approve the changes to the career ladders.
Okay.
So you can do
We'll
them both.
listen to this one and we'll do them both together.
I already covered this one. Basically, the bottom line is this basically what we did is we added that college credit in there to give that 1 year additional experience required.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this item?
None.
I have something to think about. Somebody will ask us, how are we measuring the building of this students and others that are in this program? In one case, you could say they passed the exam. In this case, how are we going to measure, tell people what the performance of those individuals who have not been able to pass the.
So it's kind of interesting where we're at right now is Greg Wilkinson is in charge of the program right now. So what I've done is I've asked him to go through and look at where we are, all the OITs. And what I did is I'm a red, yellow, green kind of guy. You know, green, everybody's doing fine. Yellow, we're coming close and we've not done what we needed to do. And red is, oh, we're within 3 months and we need to make sure we're really pushing hard. So one of the things that we're doing is every time we take an exam, we get the reviews back on the exam. It tells what each student, what they did well in, what they did not do well in. And then what we do is we take and we customize for those students what we need to do for them to focus for the next exam. Right now, this coming month, I have 8 students. I have 8 OITs going to the short course at Mount St. Mary's College, and it's a 5-day regimen where they just sit there for 8 hours and get fed all the different things they need to know. And then at the end of that 5 days, they take the exam. And I've let them know that I've mandated that all 8 of them must pass the exam. So Dr. Glass asked the other day, so what happens if they don't? And I said, well, I'll blame Greg. You know, I sort of those deals. But no, what we're doing is we're pushing very hard to identify our shortfalls in training. We have a mentor program that the mentors have to each month show what they've been doing with the OITs. And then I also initiated a little different where the students get to rate the mentor. I want to make sure that our mentors are doing their job too and covering the bases that are necessary. So we've put together a one of the things as a precursor to the testing especially for the 5A, we put together a training test 100 questions, and they have to score at least an 80 on that training test before they're allowed to go and sit for the exam. So, you know, again, like with the pending, it's going to be a little bit more interesting because on the pending one, they'll be required after the second exam. Any exams after that, they're going to be required to pay the cost of the exam. So they have a little more skin in the game at that point.
Any other comments or questions on these items?
None.
Hearing none, can I get a motion for the approval of the water wastewater operator and training, as well as the operator policies?
So moved.
Do I
Second.
have a second? All right,
Second.
thank you. All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item that we need to talk about is the executive director's performance evaluation timeline. So I'm just going to review that quickly. April 24th, evaluation forms will be distributed to all board members. Ms. Fuller, I assume you'll be sending those out?
I will.
Okay. I need those emailed to me. Please note my current email address by May 29th, 2025. I will compile all the results and kind of condense them into one document as we did last year. And I will distribute that to all board members on June 2nd. On June 12th, we'll have another HR committee meeting. And we'll go into executive session there to develop a salary recommendation for the executive director. On June 26th, we will present that salary recommendation to the full board during executive session and request a vote. And then following that meeting, last year, Shelley, are you okay with this? You and I met with him to go over his salary recommendation.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. And again, that will occur after the June 26th meeting. Any comments or questions regarding that schedule?
For the executive session, when you review the performance evaluation, that's typically separate. Do you want to make sure the other members of the audit committee are involved in that, or is that just the HR committee at that point, since they've already submitted their review to you?
I mean, everyone is welcome to attend, but since it's a recommendation from the HR committee to the board, I think it only needs to be the HR committee.
Okay.
Anybody else have a different thought on that?
None.
Okay. And again, our next HR committee meeting will be June 12th. And that's where we will review the evaluation and develop a salary recommendation. Is there any new business for the HR committee?
None for me.
Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
And also second.
Thank you all.